الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد. Just here on Edgware Road to have some reflections on death and to reflect upon the process of grief and maybe some thoughts on how we can help people when they are going through this. There's been a lot of people passing away. Seems like every day somebody is passing away at the moment. And it's come to my notice that there's a kind of cultural attitude about people who are grieving. It can be in different cultures, but the attitude is that you mustn't grieve, and if you are crying and if you're grieving, then you don't have sabr, you don't have tawakkul ala Allah, you don't have patience and tolerance and acceptance of the decree that Allah has taken this person. But we should remember that the year that the Holy Prophets, peace be upon him and his holy progeny's wife, Lady Khadija, peace be upon her, passed away, and his uncle Abu Talib, that is called the year of sorrow. It wasn't just the week of sorrow or the few weeks of sorrow, a couple of months of sorrow. And we also know that Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam mourned for what happened at Karbala for the rest of his days. Right, so I've had some discussions with people where I've mentioned this, like they say you should have the sabr of Sayyidah Zainab, salam alayha. But are you telling me that Sayyidah Zainab did not cry over what happened, the loss of her family members, even before Karbala, the loss of her father and of her brothers? And another thing people say is that when I bring this up, they say, oh, but that's to do with the religion. Like, they cry because that's to do with Islam. It's not to do with your personal issues. Well, Islam is about our personal issues. You can't separate the deen from our personal issues. Islam is about the heart, it's about the soul, it's about the individual. It's about our personal issues. And how many lectures do we have on studying the characteristics of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in order to try to implement what they practiced in our lives? Isn't that the whole point of Karbala? The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him and his holy progeny, he had 3 sons that all passed away in childhood, and he was known to have cried for the loss of his sons. And likewise at that time he was accused, like, why are you crying? Oh, don't you accept the qadr Allah? Don't you accept the decree of Allah? And he said that if you don't have mercy in your heart, Allah doesn't have mercy on you. There's nothing in Islam says you cannot feel grief. Yes, you're not meant to make an ugly scene. You're not meant to kind of get hysterical and unseemly, we could say. And there is, of course, an official mourning period for those that have lost a spouse, the mourning period being 4 months and 10 days. But I really don't understand this virtually inhuman attitude that you should just carry on life as it was before. And after a few weeks, you get messages saying, I hope everything's better now. I mean, I was trying to give the benefit of the doubt, and maybe it's very hard to know what to say to people who are bereaved. And maybe it's just a way of saying, I hope you're okay. But that's fine. But for some people, it's kind of business as usual. Like, oh, are you ready now to just go back to business as usual? Like, I can just ask you favors and, oh, I hope you're okay, but yeah, it's something I wanted. Yeah, can you do this for me? Or that's fine. I don't mind giving favors at all. But it's about contacting someone who is bereaved and using their grief, using their time of grief as an opportunity to ask for something, for the favor. That's what it is. Taking advantage of someone's grief and weak moments in order to get the foot in the door and try and get something. I mean, people can feel grief in many different ways. One thing I can say is that grief can really just take over your whole body. I mean, it's a physical experience. Feeling grief is a physical experience. You can't chat, you can't have like a kind of normal conversation. Sometimes you can if you're putting on a brave face, but a lot of the time when people are chatting, you just zone out, really. It's very hard to concentrate on a conversation. It's very hard to concentrate on work because your mind is just purely on the person that has gone, the person that has passed away, and not only that, but on everything that they went through in life, unresolved issues, any suffering that they went through, any outstanding issues that are ongoing. So it's not like out of sight, out of mind. Oh, they're in the ground now, so we can just get back to life as it was before. And maybe there's things we don't understand because we haven't been through it ourselves. So just some tips are that if you want to contact someone who's bereaved, like a major bereavement, like a parent or a sibling or a spouse, just first of all ask how they are. Don't just say kind of, hope you're okay, by the way, blah blah blah. Just kind of first of all find out how they are, because they might really be struggling that day. like just struggling to keep their mind together. Islam does not prohibit us from being a human being, being a normal human being. And experiencing grief, which is, it's not, like I said, grief is something physical. It's not even like, oh, I'm just in the mood for crying. No. It is literally something that grips your being. And so it doesn't really have to do with sabr. The sabr comes from trying to be strong through the grief. That you can't stop the grief itself. And so we need to learn some emotional maturity, is what I would say. Emotional maturity. Islam cultivates the mind, the heart, gets us to think in order to get us to be more human and to understand what it is to be a human being. And I think maybe in many cultures, death is an awkward moment for many people, and often we're at a loss as to what is the right thing to say and do. But I would say that it's highly unlikely that after a few weeks the person is just going to be back to business as usual. You know, everything's back to normal now. Hope you're feeling better, ready to go back to your normal routine. Death is something life-changing. The death of someone is a permanent, profound, life-changing event. And there's an awful lot to reflect upon. The direction that one's life is going to take after this, what the will of Allah means, reflecting upon the afterlife, and of course really missing that person. And all the things that come with that. Being convinced they're gonna walk in the door any minute. So many things reminding you. So many triggers, as they call it in modern day speak. So many triggers reminding you of that person.
Go home. Thank you.
You're literally kind of living in another world. You've just been kind of plunged into another world, and you see everything through the lens of that other world that you've been put in. I can't say how long it lasts or is going to last. I think it's different for everybody. But you're literally just virtually on a different planet, really. And of course my thoughts go out to everybody who's lost dear ones lately in this pandemic, and also for other reasons. There was a brother on Facebook whose son has been shot dead, rahmatullah alayh, and maybe collectively we can come up with better ways of helping those who have gone through this life-changing event. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.